In this problem, we're going to look at a graph of an inequality, a linear inequality. I know this is linear because of the powers on x and y are both 1, and because of that, they're not there. So that's how I know that this is a line, and we're going to treat it as if it's an equal sign to graph the line, and then we're going to deal with the fact that it's not an equal sign to do the shading in just a second. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do when I see this problem is I'm going to treat it as if it were x equals negative 2y instead of greater than. And the reason I'm going to do that is just to get the line, to graph the line first. Alright, now to do this, you can pick points for the variable that has the number being multiplied by it. So sometimes maybe the number will be over here with x, and then in this case it's over with y. But either way, whichever side has the number with it, you pick numbers for that variable. So I'm going to plug in numbers for y. So I'm going to let y equal 0. So if y was equal to 0, then I'm going to replace this y right here with 0, and I'm going to get x equals negative 2 times 0, and then anything times 0 is 0, so I get x equals 0. Alright, so when y is 0, x is 0, so that's a point, and that point is 0, 0, the origin. So now I go over to the graphing tool here, I blow it up, and I'm going to choose the line tool, and I'm going to pick the origin 0, 0. You can see up here in the upper right corner that I'm on the origin now. I'm going to click the mouse and plot that point. Alright, now coming over here, I'm going to have to come up with a second point. Okay, I need 2 points to make a line. So now that I've got 0, 0, I need to come up with another point. So again, it doesn't matter what we pick for y, we can pick anything we want. This time, since I picked 0 last time for y, now I may pick just 1. You know, just something easy to work with, easy to do math with. So now I'm going to pick y to be 1. Alright, so negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Alright, and I picked y to be 1. So when y was 1, alright, that's the y coordinate, the second value. X is negative 2, that's the first coordinate. Alright, so negative 2, 1 will be my second point that I plot. Alright, so I come back in here and I find negative 2 for x, positive 1 for y. Alright, again, notice up there in that corner, and I click. Okay, so there's the line x equals negative 2y. That's what it will look like if we graphed it. Now, because this is an inequality, to know if this line stays solid or if it's dashed, we look to see if this order symbol is underlined. If it's underlined, it stays solid. If it's not underlined, so that means we need to dash it. Okay, so the points that are on the line, x equals negative 2y, are not included because we're not underlined, so we dash it. Alright, now the last thing you got to do is shading. So this is the shading tool, and we are going to shade in the direction either above or below. Okay, there's 2 regions now created by this line. There's a region above the line, there's a region below the line. So all you have to do is just pick a point in either region. It doesn't matter which region you pick, but again, just pick something that's easy to work with. So like this point right here, 0, 1. X is 0, y is 1. That's a point that's not on the dashed line, so it's in one of the regions or the other. So that's going to be your test point. Alright, but now we're back to using the actual inequality. So x equals negative 2y. Now we're going to use the point, like I said, we're going to use the point 0, 1, a point that was not on the line. And 0 is the x coordinate, 1 is the y coordinate. So we're going to plug 0 in for x, so this is 0. Alright, and then beside the 0 is the greater than symbol. And then 1 is the y coordinate. So we're going to plug in a 1 right there where the y is, so negative 2 times 1. Alright, and then simplifying, negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. I get 0 is greater than negative 2. Now you have to ask yourself then, once you simplify, once you plug in the test point and simplify, you have to ask yourself, is this true? Is 0 greater than negative 2? If it is, and it is, then that means that point that we just picked as our test point is part of the shaded region because it makes it true. If it were not true, if we had picked a different point, I'll show you with a different point in a second, then we would not shade in that direction, and we would have to shade on the other side of the line that we drew. So because 0, 1 did make it true, I'm going to shade up here above the line. Okay, now, for instance, negative 2, 0 did not make it true. If I were to use negative 2, 0 as my test point, just again another point that was not on the line, that would have been, again, x would have been negative 2, y would have been 0. So I would have plugged in negative 2 for x and the greater than symbol. Then I would have plugged in 0 for the y, and I would have got negative 2 times 0. And it would end up simplifying to negative 2 is greater than 0. Okay, negative 2 is not greater than 0. Alright, so if that had been my test point, then that meant that that thing is not in the shaded region. So I would not shade the part of the line, or part below the line that contained the negative 2, 0 point. Okay, so once you've graphed your line, once you've changed this to an equals, come up with 2 points to make the line, then you just pick any point that's not on the line and determine, does the x and y coordinate, when I plug it into the actual inequality, make it true, therefore I shade it, or make it not true, therefore I don't shade it, thereby shading the other side.